What I have found amongst the ecosystem is in every individual problem area, there's dozens of people all at the same time trying to solve that problem. And they often view each other as competition. If you can remove the scarcity mindset, like there's enough money here to build bigger, bolder ideas than the ones we've got going already. If we would trust ourselves to go bigger than we've already done and to say, like, here's what I've got, what do you got? Like, what could we do if we did together?
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovation City.
Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, disruptors, and creators who are making things happen today. My name is Michael T. Johnson, and I'm here with my co-host, Tyler Kelly. Tonight, we are at Venture Cafe Miami. So if you're not familiar, Venture Cafe is the largest gathering of innovators, disruptors, and creators anywhere in the entire world. So on a Thursday night, they're gathering in cities all over the world. And if you're close to one, you're going to want to be there. So I'm very excited tonight because we have Rebecca Fishman Lipsey with us. So Rebecca, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. So Rebecca is the founder and CEO of Radical Partners. Radical Partners accelerates social impact innovation in South Florida. And she's cooked up a few social innovations of her own, 30 Days of Change, 100 Great Ideas, Social Entrepreneurship Bootcamp, and began coaching and supporting top local innovators to scale their impact through the organization. Over the last 4 years, Radical Partners has helped scale and launch over 50 social impact ventures, and I can't wait to hear about a few of those.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so Rebecca, I'm curious with all of that that's going on, like where did all this start?
Oh, boy. So Miami's on fire right now, and it's a lot of things growing and brewing. And 10 years ago, when I moved here, reflected on all the issues that were facing the future of the city. This is an incredible place to live, an incredible place to be, but there's serious issues facing us: sea level rise, housing affordability, educational equity, and looked around to see that we had all the ingredients necessary to solve all of these issues, but we weren't seeing major traction. The needle wasn't moving. And I thought to myself, like, there has to be a better way to create civic change. And Radical Partners is basically an experiment of messing around to see, like, what takes. How do you help people who have amazing ideas to get those ideas to actually take and scale? How do you get thousands upon thousands of locals to learn about issues and get engaged in ways that actually work? So we're messing around, and it's been a really interesting couple of years.
Wow.
Yeah, so you're messing around, but what's kind of the problem that you're trying to solve?
So there's a couple problems we're trying to solve. The first is, like, I genuinely believe we have the ingredients necessary to solve civic issues. Like, cities can be so powerful, and cities are stronger and better when locals take responsibility, as many as possible, take responsibility for the shaping of the future of the city. But there aren't a lot of clear mechanisms to do that. Often, have you ever been to a commission meeting? It's like death. It can be like death. So the current methods for people who want to help care for the future of the city: you take a day off from work, try to go to a city council or commission meeting to have your voice heard and share ideas, and you'll wait and wait and wait to be able to make a 2-minute comment that doesn't necessarily, like, go anywhere to produce anything. It's a soul-sucking experience. And so we're trying to figure out ways to leverage technology and to leverage, like, the collective voice of people to make civic change happen. And then same, if you're trying to launch a venture that solves an issue, it can be soul-sucking as well. You have to raise a ton of money. You have to gain support, build a team, like, rally people. And often there's this huge period of time where you believe in the thing you're doing and you understand the thing that you're doing, but people have yet to believe that this is going to turn into anything. And so you're standing there lonely and vulnerable, we want to. It takes a radical partner in that moment. See what I did there? It takes someone willing to stand and say, I believe in that idea. I'm going to help you get that off the ground. And we want to see people be successful at taking their ideas and growing them to scale. And so I think it's like two problems. The first is, like, the leaders who are doing the work, how do we help them get their ideas to fruition? And then for locals who want to get engaged, how do we help them get engaged in a meaningful and constructive way?
Wow. So now I want to hear about some successful projects that you've scaled and launched. What are a few that stick out for you, in the last couple of years?
So I mean, I have two favorites on our end, but I think at the end of the day, like, we're a platform to help other people scale their ventures. And so the things I'm most proud of, it's not about me and the work that we've done. It's about other people who've had genius ideas and then they've taken them to scale. So on my end, like, two projects that I love are 100 Great Ideas and the Bootcamp that we run. So 100 Great Ideas, and I kind of referenced it a minute ago, is about civic voice and civic power, and trying to figure out how to get thousands upon thousands of voices to learn about issues that matter to the future of the city and to get engaged. And so, like I had described earlier, the problem there is that there's really very few ways for locals to voice what they want to see for the future of their city. And so every year we pick one issue that we think really matters in Miami that we want every local to learn about and get involved in. And we invite them for 1 week to collectively brainstorm all together as a region. And then we synthesize the top 100 ideas and present them to leaders who can make those ideas come to life. And so we'll pick an idea like, how are you going to strengthen the Miami airport? People complain a lot about the strength of the Miami airport. And so, stop complaining. What are your ideas? What are your solutions? Get everyone to be solution oriented together, and then present to the director of the airport. These, first of all, there are thousands upon thousands of locals. Here are their ideas constructively, and here's the top 10, and here's the top 100. And they implemented 9 out of the top 10 within the year of us sharing that report. And we've done topics like housing affordability, where then after the campaign, we had folks like JP Morgan Chase & Co. sponsoring some of the ideas that came from the campaign. Or this year, we're going to be doing sea level rise. And these are challenges that people know they exist, and they'll complain, or I'm worried about this. There's a huge portion of the city is going to be underwater if we don't do something. But instead of woe is me, I don't know what to do, this is somebody else's problem, how do we harness the power of tens of thousands of locals to say, I care about this, and here's the best idea I've got. And so 100 Great Ideas, we host it on Facebook because you can access it from wherever, and you don't need to show up to a meeting. You can be sitting in your pajamas on your couch to participate. You could be on your break at work. And we get tens of thousands of locals to chip in their opinion and to like each other's and comment and build, and then we synthesize the voice. And there's something really powerful when you can say, not just this is me and my 2-minute comment, but this is thousands of people's opinion. It makes things move, and it puts wind on the back of leaders. So that's one project that I love. I can tell you about others, but you may have other.
That's awesome. Well, tell us about the Bootcamp too.
So Bootcamp, we do it annually. We're building a hub of social innovators who are building things that we think matter to the future of the region. So if you're launching a venture and it's off the ground already and it's solving a community-based issue, it could be for-profit, it could be non-profit. We are agnostic. We just want you to be solving something that matters, that you would apply to Bootcamp. Often folks who are applying, they're in the kind of $100,000 range of a project, and we're aiming to help them scale to the $1 million plus stage. And we've had folks who come in who the problem that they're solving is that they want to figure out how to create local art that scales outside of Miami. Miami's doing a lot of importing of art, and we want to figure out how to get art that is created here and scales. And so the genius who's creating that will say, like, we believe in you, we believe in your mission, we've seen your track record, come join our cohort and invest in kind of the work that they're doing. We have folks who see that innovation in Miami is exploding, but it's not inclusive, and they want to make sure that communities of color are represented, and they're going to build a hub for that, and we believe in them and we believe in their mission. Join our cohort, we want to invest in you. And we've had 50, we're in our 5th cohort now, it's about 10 or 11 a year that come in. And what I thought at first when we started was, first of all, it's an awesome experience to be just surrounded by badasses who are creating things that matter. And I thought it was going to be a content play, like we're going to teach pitch and fundraising and branding and marketing, and it's all going to be about kind of the skills that are developed. What I have discovered is the community part of it is really powerful. It is exhausting to stand and lead at that capacity. You give all of yourself. I imagine you see this in what you're building as well. It's not a job, it's a life. And there's a huge burnout rate for leaders who are sacrificing to create things that matter to the future of the city. And we want to sustain them and build community for them so that they have a home base and a space of nurturing where, like, the walls come down and we all know what it is to be failing and standing tall and doing the work and continuing to feel kind of the pressures of it, and we're with you, and it's a safe space. And I found like that part of it is really powerful for all the folks involved.
When you're creating like that safe space for people that you're talking about, like entrepreneurs and people that are like heavily involved in either like nonprofits or social causes, like the tendency for burnout is pretty great.
Yeah.
But when you create that safe space for people, like, what are you finding out?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple hard truths in this space for people, whether for-profit or nonprofit. Like, nobody really knows what they're doing. We are all making it up as we go along, and the higher up people get in their leadership, like the less they feel like they have muses and mentors to actually coach them through the hard stuff. And you have to be willing to to trust yourself and gamble on yourself and try things and fail publicly and fail graciously and learn from that. And I think everyone, at least from what I've seen, who's doing that and experiencing it, they feel so vulnerable and raw, and as if they're the only ones who are kind of making up they're driving the boat, they're building the boat, it's all happening at once. But when you build kind of trusting, authentic relationships with other people who are having that same experience, it enables people to feel the trust in their own voice, and also like, it is okay, I am messing up, you have messed up, and also like, I admire you, and now that I know the backstory of how hard it was for you to do that thing, I feel nurtured and sustained in how hard it is for me to build this thing, and it's worth it. And then you have people who are authentically cheering you on, not because they want something from you at the end of it, but because like they're there with you, and your success is their success, and there's something that lifts about that, and also helps when you do fail, that there's people that they believe in you, and you are not your job, and you are not the success of your venture, and I'm with you, and I'm community with you regardless of how this rolls.
Prior to the show, you mentioned that scarcity is like one of the biggest challenges that faces just the community at large. Tell me about that idea of scarcity.
Yeah. So, who's it? A guy, Kawasaki, says like, be a baker, not an eater. He talks about how like people look at a pie, and like an eater will look at a pie and think, there's a certain amount of pie, and as much pie as I get, the less you get, and the more you get, the less I get. And he says, like, don't be an eater, be a baker. A baker looks at a pie and they say, like, I'm going to make bigger pies, I'm going to make better pies, I'm going to make new pies. And I find, like, for folks in an ecosystem that's growing at this pace, it can be intimidating, like, as you see so many people scaling, to think, oh my gosh, they just got resources, there's going to be less resources for me. They're growing a thing that's solving this problem, I wanted to solve that problem too, there's going to be less room for me to create a thing. And it creates tension, a false tension, genuinely. And what I have found amongst the ecosystem is, in every individual problem area, there's dozens of people all at the same time trying to solve that problem, and they often view each other as competition. Well, why would I give to you instead of them? Why would I invest in your thing? And why are you better than them? It's the wrong question. It's the wrong orientation, and that's happening often. It's coming from the questions on the grant applications, the questions from investors. But the right question is, like, what is it going to take to solve that problem, and how many of you can get your heads together and do something bigger and bolder? And that's kind of the fun that comes out when you build community amongst innovators. Is like, if you can remove the scarcity mindset, like, there's enough money here to build bigger, bolder ideas than the ones we've got going already. If we would trust ourselves to go bigger than we've already done, and to say, like, here's what I've got, what do you got? Like, what could we do if we did together?
Have you found ways to remove that scarcity mindset?
So we're messing around with a couple models of, like, how do you remove that? One of the things we're playing around with coming in the upcoming year is to do a cohort of only people all together who are solving the exact same problem. And you can only get in the cohort if you will do something bigger than you could do by yourself with somebody else in the group. And so the application, instead of just, who are you, what's your big dream, and we're going to fund you in your big dream, it's like, okay, we get you, and you're amazing, all of you all are amazing, but what could you not do yet? And look around and see someone else who, if you partnered with them, you could create bigger. Now apply together. And when we opened applications for that, like, a really fascinating thing happens, where all people who are typically positioned to be competing with each other are calling each other saying, hey, like, what do you want to do together? I don't know, what do you want to do together? Oh, what could we do? And then whether or not they end up in the fellowship together, it creates a different kind of water for everyone to swim in. So we're messing around with that model. But I think as well, like, evidence is really valuable for people, like seeing evidence that when you play with each other, you can create better, and that people will not squash each other, they will not steal from each other, like, we can do better. Like, models of that visibly are really important, and so I try, like, to spot it when it's happening and to lift it and to celebrate it, because I think when people see it celebrated, they know it's safe to do that thing that's happening. And so, like, part of the game for us within our bootcamp community now, or we've hit the 50, we've hit the 70 mark. By next year, we'll have 100 organizations. Well, when we see them collaborating with each other, and when we, like, try to put them together to do great, and then we can name it and help them get resources for that, I think it just makes it easier for other people to do the same.
I was just gonna say, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I like that.
I hope so. I mean, again, like it's experiments, and like sometimes it's not going to work. There are times where we've tried to collaborate with others, and it's hard. Like collaboration is rough. People have mixed expectations. They have, mixed goals, and you're putting them together. Like it's hard. It sounds really cool on the front end, but it actually is quite messy. But it is worth it. And I have found, like for us, we've grown past the early stage of like, will innovation take in Miami? Like the answer is yes. Yes. The question is, will things scale? Like, will they scale past the $1 million mark here? And like, why aren't we drawing down multi-million, like $10 million investments? When they happen, we celebrate so hard, but like, why aren't we drawing down our share of that locally? Why aren't we going big enough? And I think like this is part of what it's going to take for us is like big, like massive ideas that take multiple people.
So tell me about that. Why you mentioned like $1 million kind of what's magic about that number that for some reason it's like a limit?
So there's a couple things, and again, these are theories. This is one woman's opinion. But there's a couple things happen when an organization's hitting that $1 million mark. The first is like the size of their team. Like that's where some of the initial complications are going to come. So it's not just you and a co-founder. Like when you're at the 100,000 mark, it's you and some friends and volunteers, not necessarily even within an office. Like you're in a garage, you're doing a thing, or you have a shared space, or a desk somewhere. When you hit the $500,000 mark, you're starting to hire up, you're starting to stabilize your programs, you're starting to think not just about how am I going to afford this 3 months from now, but actually like what does next year look like? You hit the $1 million mark, like that is large enough a sustaining point where like you cannot be planning month to month, quarter to quarter. You need to be thinking years ahead. So first of all, the impact is totally different. Like you're no longer thinking about, is this an idea that's going to work? You're thinking visionarily, like what is the transformational thing I could create if? And also like you're managing people who are managing people at that stage. And so you're not touching every single thing that you do. So either your idea is good enough and your systems are strong enough that when other people implement them, they still work, or that's where it breaks. And so for me, it's not just about, can we raise the $1 million? The money is here, we can raise the $1 million. The question is the idea strong enough and is the team strong enough to sustain through that mark of leadership?
Yeah. So what have you found? So I have all these thoughts going through my head, like if just throwing $1 million at a company could break a company, if it's broken. But like, what are you finding that's getting people kind of past that mark?
Yeah. So there's a couple topics that I feel like really need to be thought through at the front end that ready organizations for that $1 million mark. And I would agree with you, like you see a great idea, just throw cash at it without thinking through a couple things. Like that money will get burned through quickly, and it's hard. Like it is hard. But growth and growth is hard. Like a lot of it is people based. Like learning how to hire a really strong team, how to onboard a team. I feel like these are stuff that gets overlooked. Is you have to shift from launching your thing with people who you know and trust and who like you, to thinking about what skills are necessary to do this thing, and how do I get the right people on board, and how do I train them to do this thing, and how do I manage it without doing all the work. I think like switching from being the visionary to being a leader of people, it's a different skill set. And sometimes it's a different person. Like you actually need to have a shift from kind of the vision to the actual execution. Like there's a moment where you actually need to be figuring out how you delegate that or hire in somebody new. But sometimes it's skills that just need to be developed and time that needs to be spent. So we spend a lot of time in our bootcamp thinking through like, what is your vision? What is your theory of change? Not just does this feel good and do you want to do more of this? A lot of organizations that are great will say like, we're doing a cool thing. We want to do more of this cool thing. But like reverse that. Like what is the problem you're trying to solve? What would it look like if it was solved? And what will it take to get there? How big would you need to be? What does the team need to look like? What would it cost? What are the structures that all happen? So like planning that from the beginning is a really transformational process for a leader. So vision, pitch, kind of how are you going to explain this to others and motivate and rally them and tell your story. And you all are storytellers, so you know this. Like helping a leader think through, what is the story you're telling now, and also what is the story you need to tell 5 years from now, and what's your plan to get there. And then like some executive management skills, like time management is the death of so many great leaders. So helping people think through how do you prioritize your time, and how do you decide what only you can do and what other people could do that you could train or that could do it better than you could.
You're talking about telling your story, and it sounds like a lot of leaders or founders in that stage may have trouble telling that story.
Yeah.
How do they do that in a way that's effective to the right people?
Yeah. So It's true. There's a lot of leaders who actually have a golden idea, but they understand the complexity and the nuance of an idea. And it just, for someone who's not an expert in that space or who's not obsessed with that issue, it doesn't translate. And so a lot of what we discuss when we talk about pitch and telling your story is, like, at the end of the day, you're going to meet so many people as you're interviewing them over the course of the day. Like, at the end of the night, when you sit home at the kitchen table and you're having dinner, like, you're going to remember, it's like, how was your day, honey? Like, remember like one thing that really stuck out to you from the day. Like, I'll be lucky if I get to be that one thing. And then of all the nonsense that I said in this interview, there's going to be one thing that you remember that makes it to dinner. Like, what is that thing? And like 9 times out of 10, it's not some big theory I had. It's going to be like some problem that I raised that stuck with you. Like, if I can get you obsessed with the problem that I'm solving and I say something about it that really gut punches you, I'll make it to the dinner table conversation. And so helping people think through, like, why do you care about that thing? And why does that thing really matter? And what's underneath that? Like, what's the real problem? And why would anybody, like, what is evergreen about that? Why would anybody care about that? Why would anyone be enraged by that? And lead with that and help people, like, focus less on the what of what you're doing and much more on the why. And I find, like, it also forces a leader to ask themselves some critical questions about, like, well, why is it that I am obsessed with this thing? Why am I willing to sacrifice the next years of my life towards this solution, and get out of the wonky details of it and into the heart of it?
And my other question has to do with, you're talking about people get to this phase where they have to, this whole idea of, like, that $1 million mark and scaling up. This is exactly kind of the problems you're talking about that you're solving. Is there a connection between that scarcity idea and the problems that people have at that size?
It's a good question. Yeah. And I think in my mind, like, some of it is about, like, how big are you willing to go with the solution in your head? There's a lot of people who, apply to Bootcamp or even are, at the beginning stages of their journey in their leadership. And the problem that they're solving is really big, and they take bite-sized pieces out of the problem because that's what they can handle right now. That's what they can afford right now. And it's really hard to think big in your solution when you can't afford big, and it's really hard to, like, rally funders and investors around a big idea when, like, all you've done is that little thing. And helping people kind of, it's like a self-imposed scarcity mindset. Like, I don't think that I can pull that off, and I don't want to talk a big game about this big thing I'm going to do and then not pull it off. And so, like, what's the gap between, like, how do I think visionarily and take big risks without looking foolish?
That's a good question.
Yeah, but if I could share, like, a strategy on that front.
Yep.
When I think about 100 great ideas, like, the problem that we're solving is massive, which is I want to transform the way cities allow locals to solve problems. Like, I want to change that. I can't solve that in a year, but every single year that I do one of these campaigns, there's a big chunk, like a bite I can take out of that. And I have to ask myself every year, like, what is the biggest bite I can take this year? And when I hook you on 100 great ideas, I'm not talking just about the little bite from this year. I have to know what that bite is. I'm hooking you on the big vision. And so I need to understand with clarity, like, 10 years from now, this is what has changed because I have done this thing. This is the method that I have used, and these are the results that I've gotten, and it's big. But this year alone, like, this is what I need. I need 100,000 voices together at the table. I need 20 elected leaders who review and then implement an idea. I need staff members engaged. Like, I know what my goals are for this project for this year. I know why they matter. I know what they cost. But if I just talk little with you, I will, like, first of all, I will never get to the big goal, and also I will never get the dollars necessary to do a big thing like that.
All right, so tell me how people can get involved with Radical Partners, apply for the next cohort, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so people can check out our site, radical.partners, to learn about the programs that are coming up. We have every year 2 cohorts that launch. The first half of the year is our Leadership Lab, like our Neighborhood Heroes program, which is for grassroots leaders, and that's at the first half of the year. So kind of like January, February, March, that's when applications will open for that. And then in the fall, so like starting in the summer, we start recruiting, and then in the fall, our Bootcamp applications open, and that'll all be on our social media on Facebook and Twitter, and you can also see it if you're on our site.
Social media at?
So Radical, I don't know what our Facebook, it's Radical Partners.
We'll put
Facebook.
it in the show notes.
Yes.
Yes.
Shame on me. I should know this. I'm fired. But yeah, people can find us on social media to see that, and on our site, every time we open a cohort, we'll be blasting it on there. And then, every year we launch these 100 Great Ideas campaigns, and you can find that on Facebook, and you can find that on our site. And I would just encourage any local who wants to get civically engaged to see what we're solving each year and to get involved in that. And then we have a couple cities that are, I think Atlanta is going to be replicating 100 Great Ideas this year. And so if you're in another city and watching this and that sounds like a strategy that you want to see in your own community, call us and we'll help you bring it there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Rebecca, Radical Partners, thank you for being on the show. This was enlightening, to say the least.
Thanks. I can't wait for the next one.
For more episodes, visit innovationcity.co and be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. If you're in Miami, visit us at Venture Cafe on Thursday nights. You can find details at venturecafemiami.org and connect with us on social at WeAreSlam and Venture Cafe MIA.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams